I just got divorced and moved abroad. My ex-husband married his mistress right away. At the wedding, a guest said something that made him lose it. Then he called me. I thought that final dinner would tear me apart. Instead, watching him, I felt an icy calm wash over me, and I knew, in that moment, my whole life was about to irrevocably change. 8 years ago, David, my husband, proposed to me right here at this very corner table. Today, I'd reserved it again, ordering the same steak he used to love. This wasn't a celebration, it was our last goodbye, the final ritual to sever everything. He arrived 15 minutes late, his white shirt the same one I'd ironed the week before I packed my things. David pulled out his chair and sat down without a word, his eyes already glued to his phone. Fingers swiping frantically, a sly smile occasionally playing on the face I once adored. I knew exactly who he was texting, Chloe, his young secretary, the one who'd so effectively inserted herself into our marriage. The waiter brought our plates. David's steak sizzled, fragrant steam rising. He picked up his knife and fork, cutting a piece, chewing mechanically. I ordered what you like, I said, breaking the suffocating silence. Yeah, he grunted, not looking up. I just watched him. The man who sat across from me. His coldness didn't hurt anymore. It brought an immense sense of relief. My hand trembled slightly as I reached for my wine glass. The bitter red helped steady me. Once the paperwork is done, I'm moving, I announced, my voice flat. I've already bought my ticket to Vermont. This time, his fingers stopped. He finally looked up, a flicker of surprise quickly masked by his usual indifference. Vermont? What are you even going to do there? My grandmother left me a small house in Maplewood, near the coast. I'm going to settle there. I waited, half expecting some plea, a clumsy wish for good luck. Nothing. David just shrugged, as if I'd simply commented on the weather. Whatever you want, it's for the best, he said, that smile returning. Chloe and I are planning our wedding too. She deserves a grand ceremony. Chloe's not like you. She knows what she wants, and she knows how to make me happy. I almost laughed. He was right. I wasn't like Chloe. I didn't know how to feign weakness, how to use tears to get my way. And I certainly didn't know how to sleep with another woman's husband. But I didn't say any of that. I just nodded. Well, congratulations to you both. The dinner ended in a blur of silence. He didn't even glance my way as he got up to pay, rushing out, probably straight to his waiting secretary. I was left alone, staring at my almost untouched steak. I asked the waiter for a to-go box. Not out of sentiment, but because I didn't want to waste the very last dinner of a marriage. As bland and cold as it had been, it was finally over. I went back to our apartment, what used to be our home. The silence was deafening. 8 years ago, David and I poured everything into this place in downtown Chicago. I still remembered the day we got the keys, crying with happiness. We painted every wall, picked every piece of furniture together. I thought we'd grow old here. I stopped in the living room. The cream-colored sofa we'd argued over so passionately was now covered in a white sheet. The wall, once filled with our wedding photos, was bare, just nail marks left. Everything was still there, but its soul was gone. I started packing 8 years of memories, now reduced to a few cardboard boxes. In the closet, my clothes on the left, his on the right. I folded my dresses and blouses carefully. A couple of his shirts were still mixed in with mine. I picked them up. That familiar fabric softener scent, once synonymous with peace, still clung to them. Now, I just put them in a separate bag for their new owner. I opened the bottom drawer, where I kept our keepsakes. A small wooden box held old photos. The first one from college, our smiles so innocent. Our wedding day. Me, radiant in white. Him, looking at me with infinite tenderness. 8 years. Where had that look gone? I didn't cry. My tears had dried up the day I discovered his texts. I just felt a profound exhaustion. I placed the wooden box at the bottom of my suitcase. I wouldn't throw it away, but I knew I'd never open it again. It belonged to a chapter of yesterday, a chapter that died with our marriage. I spent the whole afternoon cleaning. When the apartment was almost empty, with only his belongings left, I texted him, "I've packed my things. Keep what you want." I'm only taking clothes and personal items. The shared memories are in the desk drawer. Do what you want with them. A minute later, his reply came, as brief and cruel as ever. Okay, thanks. I took one last look at the apartment. Goodbye. Goodbye to 8 years of my youth. I left the key on the oak coffee table, next to the TV remote. A dry click echoed in the empty room. I dragged my suitcase to the door and slammed it shut, not looking back. I felt light, as if a weight I'd carried too long had finally lifted. Freedom. I was finally free. The day at the courthouse, the Chicago sky was neither sunny nor rainy. Humid and dense, just like my mood had been months ago. But today, my heart felt strangely calm. I wore a simple beige dress, light makeup. I wouldn't look like a victim on my last day as a wife. David was there too, suit pressed, hair slicked back. But the dark circles under his eyes betrayed his fatigue. Maybe from the legal proceedings, or maybe from pleasing his pregnant lover. An older judge, glasses perched on his nose, looked at us with a compassionate gaze. Have you thought this through? Marriage is for a lifetime. Yes, Your Honor, we have, we replied in unison. Everything was quick. Signatures, stamps. The judge declared us divorced. 8 years of life, reduced to a thin sheet of paper. I received my divorce decree, a certificate of single status that felt both heavy and light. As we left the courtroom, David's phone rang. He answered hastily, his tone switching from cold to sickeningly sweet. I'm coming out now, my love. Don't move. Wait for me. He hung up and walked past me as if I were a stranger, rushing out, almost colliding with another woman. He didn't say a single word of goodbye. I stood there, watching his back disappear down the hall. I even smiled. That ending was just fine. I was in a hurry too. My suitcases were at Maria's. I just needed to grab them and head to Union Station. Maria, my best friend, was already waiting. As soon as she saw me, she ran to hug me. Sarah, are you okay? Her voice filled with concern. I'm fine, I said, patting her back. Better than ever. Maria looked me up and down, frowning. You look it. Your face is paler than a ghost. Are you going to be all right on your own out there? She pressed a heavy cloth bag into my hand. Here, a bottle of good Vermont Pinot Noir, some cheese from the local creamery, and artisanal sourdough. I know you might feel a little out of place at first. When you miss home, have some of this so you don't feel so alone. I started to laugh, a lump in my throat. Even in my worst moment, I still had someone who truly cared. Thanks, Maria. Only you get me. What's to get? She grumbled. Now that you're leaving, you have to live well. Make yourself gorgeous. Get rich. Make that jerk die of envy. And don't you ever dare cry over an idiot again. We sat in a coffee shop at the station, talking about everything and nothing. Maria gave me 1,000 pieces of advice, from finding a house to being careful with small-town men. She talked so much I could only nod and smile. I knew she was trying to cheer me up, to fill the void of our last moments together. It was time to board. We hugged tightly at the platform entrance. Take care of yourself, she whispered. If anything happens, let me know. You too. Call me as soon as you get there. She pulled away, her expression hesitant. Hey, Sarah, there's something I don't know if I should tell you. What is it? I frowned. What else can I handle? Tell me. Maria took a deep breath and leaned closer. Chloe is pregnant. I froze for a second. Not from shock, but pure irony. So that was it. That's why he'd rushed the divorce, why he didn't care about assets, just wanted me to sign quickly. I managed to smile. Well, double the happiness for them. That's not all, Maria continued, her face full of contempt. They're planning an incredibly lavish wedding. My husband heard it's at the Crescent Manor. They've booked the entire main ballroom. Chloe wants the wedding of the century to show off. Typical social climber. Let them do what they want, I said, shaking my head. It doesn't matter to me anymore. And it truly didn't. The pain had turned into a scar. Hearing news about them just seemed ridiculous now. A greedy man and a materialistic woman. They were made for each other. But I'm worried about you, Maria insisted. I have to go, I interrupted. The train won't wait. I gave her one last quick hug and turned away decisively, walking through the ticket gate without looking back. I could feel Maria's eyes on me. Once in my seat, I turned off my phone. As the train left Chicago, leaving the gray city for the green landscapes of the West, I knew a new life was waiting. In that life, there'd be no room for David or Chloe. I broke the old SIM card, threw it in the trash. A clean break. Goodbye. Done. The train ride lasted for hours. I barely slept, reading a novel, trying to reconnect with parts of myself I'd set aside. When the train slowed and the announcer called the station, my heart sped up. I stepped off. The cool, damp Vermont air filled my lungs. Pure and clean, so different from the city's stale air. The sky was deep blue, cloudless, the sun bright but not burning. I gathered my luggage. Everything was unfamiliar. The accent, the people, even the smell. But I felt no fear, just a strange excitement. I took a cab to Maplewood. The driver, a friendly middle-aged man, glanced at my suitcases in the rearview mirror. Moving to Maplewood or just visiting, he asked, a warm local accent. Moving back, actually, I replied with a smile. Taking over my grandmother's house. Well, I'll be, the driver chuckled. Welcome home then. Maplewood's beautiful. You'll love it. The car left the city behind, entering the countryside. Tall buildings gave way to tree-lined roads, intensely green meadows, charming stone houses. The landscape was so peaceful, I rolled down the window and took a deep breath. The air smelled of wet grass, damp earth, and flowers. I knew I'd made the right decision. The taxi stopped before an old stone wall ivy-covered, with a faded blue wooden gate. I paid the driver and dragged my heavy suitcase through. My grandmother's house appeared. Not a mansion, but a cozy two-story stone house with a slate roof. What truly took my breath away was the garden. An explosion of color. Climbing roses covered the walls. Hydrangeas, intense blue and violet, formed huge clusters. Even a small apple tree laden with fruit. Before she died, my grandmother had hired a company to care for it. I put the old key in the lock. The heavy wooden door opened with a soft creak. Inside, everything was clean and welcoming. Solid wood furniture, rustic in style. A stone fireplace dominated the living room, next to a wingback chair upholstered in the floral fabric my grandmother loved. Late afternoon light streamed through large windows, casting golden reflections on the wooden floor. I left my suitcase and walked through the house. The small kitchen with copper pots hanging. My bedroom on the second floor, a balcony overlooking the garden. Everything perfectly preserved, as if my grandmother knew I'd return. I opened the balcony doors. The autumn breeze carried the scent of roses. I stood there, eyes closed. All the sorrow and pain of my old marriage seemed to vanish with that breeze. I was no longer Sarah, the betrayed wife. I was Sarah, my grandmother's granddaughter, the owner of this house. I was home. After a week of rest, settling in, I started looking for a job. I had a master's in interior design and experience from Chicago. I didn't want a big city, just Maplewood or a nearby town. A quiet life, no rush, no competition. I prepared my resume, sending it to small design studios. Luck smiled sooner than expected. 3 days later, an email for an interview at Stone and Timber Design, a small but reputable studio in Maplewood. I prepared nervously, choosing an elegant pantsuit, reviewing professional terms. The studio was in a hidden alley behind a bougainvillea. Benjamin, the owner, interviewed me. Around 40, slightly tousled brown hair, warm, kind green eyes. He reviewed my portfolio carefully, nodding at my past projects. Your resume is impressive, Benjamin said in a deep, calm voice. But why a small studio in Maplewood over a big firm in Chicago? I smiled, answering honestly. I came back to my grandmother's house. I love this town's peace. I want to do work I love, but also have time for my garden, for life. I believe quality doesn't depend on company size. Benjamin looked at me intently, then smiled. I feel the exact same way. I hate the city. Too loud. The interview turned into a pleasant chat about design trends and personal tastes. Benjamin was a kind boss, passionate and respectful. The next day, as I watered flowers, the phone rang. It was Benjamin. Hello, Sarah. Good news. Can you start next Monday? We have a project for a small rustic hotel, and we need someone with your exquisite taste. I was so happy I almost dropped the watering can. Yes, yes, of course. Thank you, Benjamin. Thank you so much. I had a job. A job I loved, in a place I loved. My new life had truly begun. My new routine quickly settled. I woke at 6:30, not to an alarm, but birds singing. I'd walk to the town bakery for a fresh croissant and coffee. The smell of butter and coffee filled me with energy. Work was a 15-minute walk, shaded by trees, crossing an old stone bridge over a small river. My colleagues, only 5 of us including Benjamin, were wonderful. They welcomed me warmly, patiently taught me local expressions, and always praised the dishes I sometimes brought. Benjamin was an amazing boss, immediately entrusting me with the hotel project, giving me complete creative freedom. The work absorbed me, leaving no time for the past. On weekends, no more cooking and cleaning for someone who didn't deserve it. I dedicated time to myself. I rode my bike along the riverbank, visited antique markets, or simply sat in the garden to read. I started caring for my grandmother's garden, learning to prune roses and plant herbs. My hands got dirty, but my heart found peace. This life was the polar opposite of 8 suffocating years. I felt reborn. I laughed more, slept better. One Friday afternoon, a week before David's wedding, Maria FaceTimed me. My God, Sarah, look at you. Are you glowing? Your skin is flushed, your face is so fresh. Does the weather there suit you? I guess so, I laughed. Work's going well. The air is clean. How are you? We talked for a while. Just before hanging up, Maria hesitated. Hey, Sarah. Next week, it's that jerk's wedding. Are you going to be okay? I knew Maria worried about my feelings. I looked out the window. The evening sun painted the garden gold. I'm fine, I said serenely. Next week, I have an antique ceramic workshop to visit. I'm too busy thinking about hotel bathroom tiles. Wish them happiness. I'm busy planting flowers and working. Maria looked at me for a long time, then sighed in relief. Yeah, you're right. Being busy is the best thing. To hell with them. I hung up and kept sketching. The day of their wedding, I truly didn't care. That day finally arrived. In Vermont, it was Saturday afternoon. I'd just finished watering the hydrangeas when my phone rang. A FaceTime from Maria. I smiled, dried my hands on my apron, and accepted. Maria's excited face appeared. She was in pajamas, but chaos of music and voices roared in the background. Sarah, what are you doing? She shouted. I just finished in the garden. Why is it so loud? Are you at a party? No way. My husband is. Maria rolled her eyes, lowering her voice. He's at that jerk David's wedding with that tramp. And I forced him to live stream the whole thing for me so you can get the scoop and have your revenge. With that, Maria aimed her phone's camera at her husband's phone screen. I didn't need to see. Maria's shrill voice was enough. Oh my God, Sarah. What a waste of money. My husband says they've booked the largest ballroom at the Crescent Manor. Red carpet, imported flowers everywhere. They even hired a symphony orchestra. It's insane. I frowned. And how? My husband sent me a picture. She turned the screen to show me a blurry image. Chloe's dress? They say it's designer, with Swarovski crystals, tens of thousands of dollars. And a tiara, like some fairy tale princess. And to top it off, she won't stop stroking her belly while greeting guests. You know, making sure everyone knows what a shameless woman she is. I shrugged. And David? He's bursting with pride, Maria continued indignantly. White suit, hair full of gel. Walking arm in arm like king and queen of the world. My husband says he has such an arrogant look, like he's conquered the universe. Probably thinks he's the smartest man alive for marrying a young woman who'll give him an heir. What a bunch of idiots, showing off for the cameras. I listened to Maria's complaints and just wanted to laugh. I looked at my garden, red roses in full bloom. I took a deep breath. The air here was so pure. Hey Maria, tell me what you're making for dinner tonight. Maria went quiet. I'm giving you the gossip of the year and you're asking about dinner? It's just that their story isn't interesting anymore, I smiled faintly. Let them show off. Let them think they're the best. That's their problem. I have to put a chicken in the oven now. Benjamin and the team from the studio are coming over for dinner. Maria stared at me, then suddenly burst out laughing. Oh, Sarah. Sarah, you've reached enlightenment. You're right. Why worry about those people? Go roast your chicken, and I hope it's delicious. If there are any updates, I'll call you with the next chapter. We hung up. I took off my apron, washed my hands, and started preparing dinner. Their laughter, their luxury, all of that was a world away. For the first time in 8 years, I felt no jealousy, no pain. They were just strangers, and my life was truly my own. I thought the wedding story would end with Maria's call. I had a wonderful evening with Benjamin and my colleagues. We drank wine, ate roast chicken, and discussed the hotel project. Work was progressing beautifully, and Benjamin kept praising my ideas. But the next morning, as I made coffee and stepped onto my balcony for fresh air, the phone rang again. It was Maria. At that hour, it was already mid-afternoon in Chicago. I was surprised. What's up? Another live stream? I joked, sipping my coffee. But Maria's voice wasn't indignant this time. It was pure euphoria, like she'd won the lottery. Sarah, are you sitting or standing? She shrieked. I'm standing. Why are you so happy? Sit down right now. Sit down because I'm about to tell you something that will knock you off your feet. The greatest drama in history has just begun. My husband just got home and told me everything. I can't stop laughing. Curious, I dragged a chair over and Saturday, okay, I'm sitting. What happened? Maria let out a long laugh. It turns out there was an unexpected guest at the wedding yesterday. Guess who? I frowned. How would I know? Your Uncle Gary, your grandmother's friend. I almost choked on my coffee. Uncle Gary? What was he doing there? He doesn't know David at all. That's the beauty of it, Maria said, melodramatically. It turns out David's father did a small business deal with your Uncle Gary years ago, and they still have a friendly relationship. And you know your uncle, he's a loudmouth, especially when he drinks. He'd just gotten back from Vermont, visiting his son, and stopped by Chicago. I started to imagine Uncle Gary, his booming voice in the middle of that phony wedding. And what happened? I asked, growing interested. My husband says by the end of the reception, Uncle Gary was pretty drunk. He was sitting with some friends, bragging. Maria lowered her voice, imitating Uncle Gary. You know what? I just got back from Vermont. Saw my son, and on the way, I stopped by Maplewood, that cute little town near the coast. My heart skipped a beat. Maplewood. He ran into me. Exactly. Maria exclaimed. My husband says Uncle Gary kept telling everyone, at the top of his lungs. I ran into little Sarah, my late friend's granddaughter. My God, she's so beautiful and smart. She's living in a gorgeous house with a rose garden her grandmother left her. She's living like a queen, you know. I was stunned. It was true. I'd run into Uncle Gary last week at the town market. He'd called out to me, we chatted, and I'd invited him to the house, but he was rushing to the airport. I never imagined it would end up like this. Maria kept talking. Your uncle started telling your life story to anyone who'd listen. And with that voice of his, even the tables next to them heard him. A vague unease crept over me. This story, told at David's wedding, couldn't be just a simple anecdote. My husband says, Maria continued, growing more excited, that just as Uncle Gary started talking about you, David and Chloe were thanking guests at the next table. They heard everything, word for word. I held my breath. Maria cleared her throat, continuing her performance. Uncle Gary was shouting, Sarah's a rock star. She's working for a design studio out there. Her boss, a great guy, adores her. Can't stop saying wonderful things. Says she just landed them a contract to design a huge hotel. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Smart and hardworking, like her grandmother. I pictured David's face. He'd always belittled my work, called me a conformist living off him. But wait, Sarah, here comes the best part. Maria shouted, unable to contain herself. Here comes the climax. A friend at your uncle's table asked him, wow, is the girl that smart? She must be making a good salary, right? And your Uncle Gary answered, waving his hand, salary? What salary? The salary is for her expenses. Her grandmother adored her. Not only did she leave her the house with the rose garden, she left her a multi-million-dollar inheritance. They say it's a fortune, several $1,000,000. Little Sarah is now a low-key millionaire in Vermont, living the good life, free as a bird, without having to put up with any jerks. I was speechless. It was true my grandmother had left me an inheritance, but I'd never discussed the amount. I didn't know Uncle Gary knew so much less that he'd blurted out in the middle of a wedding. Oh my God, Sarah. My husband says the instant the word millions left your uncle's mouth, David's face went from white to green. He could barely stand, and Chloe next to him had her mouth wide open. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. People at the surrounding tables started whispering. The rumors spread like wildfire. The groom's ex-wife is a millionaire. Turns out the one he just left is actually rich, and he's marrying the secretary. The murmuring grew. And you know what? Maria said triumphantly. Just when David was in shock, realizing he'd thrown away a gold mine, your Uncle Gary delivered the final blow. My heart sank. There was more. The rumor was spreading throughout the hall. David and Chloe were paralyzed. Chloe tried to pull David's arm, but he seemed glued to the floor. And then Uncle Gary, after talking about you, continued his conversation with his friend. I imagined the scene. A strange silence fell around Uncle Gary's table. Everyone strained to hear. Maria imitated Uncle Gary's voice again. But these days, my friend, there's a lot of deception. If you end up with a gold digger, you're lost. Like, what happened to the groom? This David guy. I flinched. He said it that clearly? Almost, Maria exclaimed. My husband says your uncle continued. The other day, I went to the bank to run some errands and I ran into Robert, the VP of credit, who's a friend of mine, and Robert told me something very funny. He told me that this Chloe, David's secretary, the bride today, went to the bank last week and made a scene. The faces of David and Chloe, according to Maria's husband, were drained of all blood. Robert told him, Maria continued her performance, that this Chloe went to withdraw some money from her savings account. And while she was doing it, she complained to the teller. She was talking so loud the whole bank heard her. She said, I'm so fed up. Really? I thought I'd hit the jackpot with a rich boss, but it turns out it's all for show. We're about to get married, and I still have to lend him money. I just lent him $5,000 for the expenses of this wedding. Just my luck. A deathly silence fell over the hall for a moment. Maria's husband said he could hear the clink of an ice cube falling into a glass. Two explosive truths revealed at the same time, in front of hundreds of guests. Truth number 1. The abandoned ex-wife Sarah was actually a millionaire, with a house in the Pacific Northwest and an immense fortune. Truth number 2. The new wife Chloe, showing off her $1,000 dress, was a gold digger. And the groom, David, acting so high and mighty, was broke and had to borrow money from his future wife to pay for the wedding. Sarah, Maria's voice trembled. David couldn't take it anymore. He started to shake. He turned to look at Chloe, and he looked at her as if he wanted to annihilate her in that moment. I was sitting paralyzed on my balcony in Maplewood. The coffee in my hand had gone cold. I knew the best comedy and the worst tragedy had just begun. I remained motionless, phone pressed to my ear. Maria's breathing was ragged, like she'd run a marathon. My husband says Maria took a breath, that the scene was unforgettable. David was shaking like a leaf. The entire hall, buzzing with music and laughter, fell into a deathly silence. Hundreds of eyes fixed on them. I could imagine the humiliation. David, a man who lived for appearances, who always needed to prove his success and power, was stripped bare in front of all his guests and business partners, exposed as an idiot duped by a woman. The look on Chloe's face was priceless. Maria continued. She tried to grab David's arm, whispering, "Honey, let's go to another table. Everyone's staring at us." But David didn't move. He just stared at her. My husband said his eyes were bloodshot, terrifying. The champagne flute he was holding started to tremble, golden liquid about to overflow. And then, Maria lowered her voice, as if telling a secret. He yelled, "No." He roared like a wounded animal. "Talk. What's this about the $5,000? You dared to lend me money. Chloe, terrified, took a step back. No, honey. He must have been joking. Please believe me. Believe you. David let out a bitter, mocking laugh. So you can play me for a fool? So you can take my money while I've lost everything? Maria's husband said David didn't finish the sentence. He couldn't verbalize the truth. He'd thrown away a fortune of millions. That revelation, combined with the deceit before him, completely destroyed his self-control. Crash! Maria shouted. He crushed the crystal glass in his hand. Sarah, he shattered it with his bare hand. Blood started gushing out, dripping onto the red carpet. I shuddered. I knew David had a temper, but never thought he'd lose control like that. Blood and champagne splattered everywhere, Maria's husband told her, staining Chloe's expensive dress. She screamed. David, at that moment, seemed mad. He looked at his bloody hand, then up at Chloe. You lied to me, he bellowed, his voice breaking. It's all your fault. You've ruined me. The rage exploded. The regret for losing me, the humiliation of Chloe's deceit, the fury at realizing he was a complete fool. It all built up, turning him into a madman. On his own wedding day, he realized he'd let go of a good, wealthy, capable wife to end up with a lying gold digger, one who'd milked him for every last cent for this ostentatious wedding. He'd thrown pure gold in the trash to pick up a painted rock. And then, I asked, my throat dry. Chaos. Absolute chaos. Maria's voice still trembled. After yelling, "You've ruined me," he started destroying everything. Destroying everything at his own wedding? My husband says yes, Maria replied hastily. He swung his arm and swept the tower of champagne glasses off a nearby table. The shattering glass was deafening. He flipped an entire table full of food, lobsters, seafood. Everything went on the floor. Guests were screaming, backing away in fear. And his parents. They were white as sheets, running towards him. His father tried to hug him. David, what are you doing? Stop it, please. This is an embarrassment. But he pushed his own father away. He was like an animal out of control. He pointed at Chloe, paralyzed and trembling in her white dress, stained with wine and sauce. Talk. And what about the pregnancy? Did you lie to me about that too? He yelled. The shout echoed. That question was the spark that lit the fuse. People whispered louder. Oh my God, the pregnancy is fake too? No wonder she was touching her belly so much. It was all an act. What a terrifying woman. Chloe, cornered, reacted. No trace of fake sweetness left. She screamed back, are you crazy? You dare say my child is fake. Shut up. David pushed her away. The push was so strong that Chloe, in her high heels, lost her balance and fell backward. Oh, Maria gasped. My husband says she fell and hit her stomach on the corner of a decorative table. I held my breath. Even though I didn't like her, a child was innocent. Did something happen to her? Chloe clutched her stomach, pale as wax, screaming in pain. Seeing her, David stopped for a second, probably scared. But just then, Maria paused for breath. Robert, the bank VP Uncle Gary mentioned, who was there as a partner of David's company, came over when he saw the commotion. And what did Robert say? Probably to get on Uncle Gary's good side, he spoke up loudly. Maria continued, Mr. David, calm down. It's true that Miss Chloe was complaining at the bank. I myself heard her say you were short on cash and that she had to lend you $5,000. I even have a copy of the bank statement right here. Maria's husband said after that statement, the hall erupted. Confirmation from a bank employee right there. Nothing could be more credible. It was the last straw. David had nothing left to lose. His career, his pride, his love, his money. It had all shattered in one night. He let out one last roar, Maria said, and flipped the head table where the 7-tier wedding cake was. Frosting flew everywhere. Out! Everyone get out of here. The wedding is over. The terrified guests stampeded for the exit. They weren't just leaving, they were pulling out their phones for pictures and videos. A wedding of the century, just as Chloe wanted, but a century of disaster. My husband ran out too, Maria concluded. He told me as he was leaving, you could still hear David breaking things and Chloe crying and cursing. A circus. A pathetic circus. Karma is swift, Sarah. I hung up, my soul in turmoil. I went out onto the balcony and watched the roses sleeping under Maplewood's night dew. I thought I'd be happy to know they got what they deserved, but I wasn't. I just felt a deep weariness and disgust. A life built on greed and lies had self-destructed in an instant. I slept poorly. The chaotic images of the wedding replayed in my head. The next morning, I woke with dark circles under my eyes. I decided not to listen to any more news from Maria. Their story for me was over. I needed to focus on my own life. I spent all Sunday sketching. Work helped me forget the incident in Chicago. But at night, as I turned off my computer, my phone buzzed. It was Maria. I sighed, thinking about not answering, but the ringing was insistent. What now, Maria? I'm tired. I don't want to know anymore. Wait. Maria's voice was pure excitement again. Just this once. It's the finale of yesterday's episode. I promise, after this, you'll sleep like a baby. Fine, I grumbled. Listen, she insisted. My husband just told me. He said when he went down to the parking garage to get the car, he witnessed a scene even better than the one in the ballroom. I gave in. Okay, 5 minutes. My husband saw David and Chloe screaming at each other in the parking garage, Maria said. Her parents were next to them, looking like they were at a funeral, trying to get her to leave. She didn't go to the hospital? I was surprised. After that fall? Not a chance, Maria laughed scornfully. It was all an act. My husband hid behind a pillar and heard everything. Chloe wasn't pretending to be a sweet victim anymore. She was standing with her hands on her hips, screaming in David's face. Maria cleared her throat, imitating Chloe. You're insane. You've embarrassed me in front of everyone. You ruined my wedding. David, his hand wrapped in a handkerchief, blood seeping through the fabric, yelled back. Maria continued, You're the one who ruined me. You're a liar. You've been stealing from me. And then Chloe started to laugh, Maria said with contempt. A laugh that made my husband's skin crawl. Steal from you? Do you even have money to be stolen from? Who paid for this wedding, huh? Tell me. My $5,000 wasn't even enough to get started. And my parents had to mortgage their house to pay for the sham so you could look good. You useless man. You're useless. I was frozen. So David had not only borrowed money from her, but had also squeezed her parents dry. He had sunk too deep into the mire of his own ego. My husband says, Maria continued, that when David heard that, he was speechless. He didn't expect her to throw it in his face so directly. The battle in the parking garage, with no audience or cameras, was where their true natures came out. There was no love left, only money, lies, and hatred. Chloe's parents, seeing their daughter had let the cat out of the bag, tried to cover her mouth. Maria went on, Honey, please be quiet. Let's go home. But she couldn't stop. She pushed her parents away and pointed at David. I'll tell you one thing. I married you for your money, for your director position, and for this wedding. And now you've destroyed everything. David, recovering from the shock, gritted his teeth. You dare. And then, Maria lowered her voice. Chloe launched her final attack. She put her hand on her stomach, but this time not with pride, but as a threat. Maria whispered, Listen to me carefully. This child is yours. Do you want it to live or die? Put the downtown apartment in my name right now and give me $500,000 in cash. If you don't, I'm getting an abortion tomorrow and then I'm going to your company and telling all your partners what kind of man you are. My blood ran cold. Using her own child to blackmail him, it was too cruel. And what did David do? I asked. My husband says. David stood still for a moment, then started to laugh. A laugh even more terrifying than his screams. He laughed hysterically. When he stopped, he looked at Chloe and roared, Keep dreaming. He pulled out his keys, ran to his car, and even though Chloe tried to block his way, he sped off, almost hitting her, leaving her and her parents alone in the parking garage amidst the wreckage of a luxury wedding. My husband ran off too. He didn't want to get caught in the crossfire. We were silent for a moment. Maria, I have a doubt about the pregnancy. I suspect it too, she interrupted. My husband says the fall looked bad, but a little while later, she was in the parking garage screaming with incredible energy. I suspect the pregnancy is fake, or she just used a pharmacy test to trick David. She used it to force the wedding and now to extort money. I let out a long sigh. Fake or not, that child was a victim. Well, Sarah, Maria said with a tired voice. Let's call it a night for this drama. Too greedy. Lying people who destroyed each other. Birds of a feather flock together. Go to sleep. I need it too. So much drama is exhausting. I hung up. I looked out at the night. Maplewood was calm. Crickets filled the garden. I realized the storm in Chicago had passed, and it had nothing to do with me anymore. I asked Maria not to tell me anything more about them. I didn't want the garbage of the past to dirty my present. I threw myself into my work, into the hotel project. But a month later, during one of our calls, Maria couldn't hold back. Sarah, I have to tell you, her voice was serious this time. The situation with David has really blown up. What else? His career is over. My husband says after the scandal, the videos of him trashing the wedding and screaming at Chloe went viral. Even though they were taken down quickly, all his important partners saw them. And what did they do? Cancelled contracts en masse. His most important partner, a Japanese group, sent him a letter immediately terminating their collaboration. They said they couldn't work with someone of questionable morality, who can't control his emotions, and who treats his family so cruelly. I remained silent. It was inevitable. For a businessman, reputation is more important than money. When he lost the big contract, the company went under, Maria continued. The key employees, the good ones who worked with you, left in a group. They said they couldn't work for a crazy boss who also owed them money. They left and took the clients with them so quickly. I was surprised. Yes, now he's desperate. My husband says he spends his nights taking small clients out to dinner, trying to salvage what's left. He's drinking so much that last week he was admitted to the ER for a stomach hemorrhage. He was there for 2 days, then escaped to keep drinking, but it's useless. No one wants to board a sinking ship with a captain with that kind of reputation. I shook my head. The career David was so proud of, the one he used to humiliate me, was crumbling because of his ego and bad decisions. I'm going to hang up, Maria, I said. I have a meeting with Benjamin. Yeah, you're right. She agreed. Those people don't deserve another minute of your time. You just live well. I hung up. I looked at the 3D design of the hotel lobby on my screen. I'd chosen a rustic, cozy style with local ceramics and oak wood. I felt proud of my work. It was real. It created value, unlike David's House of Cards career. Several months passed. I finished the hotel design and began supervising the construction. The work was intense, but exciting. One night, Maria called. Her voice sounded strange, almost compassionate. Sarah, today my husband saw David. Where? Not at a bar, she said softly. At a street market this afternoon. My husband went to buy a few things and saw a thin man looking like a homeless person hastily eating a sandwich in a corner. He was curious, took a closer look, and realized it was David. Thin and looking homeless? Is he that bad? My husband was stunned. He says David was skeletal, with several days' beard, dirty hair, and wrinkled, stained clothes. He was eating the sandwich anxiously, looking around fearfully. He looks 10 years older. His company is completely bankrupt. He's drowning in debt. Do you know where he got the money for the wedding? From loan sharks. He thought he'd pay it back with Chloe's parents' money or new contracts, but everything fell apart. Now the loan sharks are after him and our apartment. He mortgaged it for the wedding. The bank has already foreclosed and auctioned it off. My husband says he's living and hiding, that he doesn't dare go to his parents' house so as not to involve them. He's sleeping on a sealed-off couch. Last week, some thugs found him and harmed him in front of the building. Hearing that, I no longer felt satisfaction, only a bitter sadness. After all, he was the man I'd loved for 8 years. My husband hesitated. Maria said he was going to approach him, but David realized he was being watched, got scared, threw down his sandwich, and ran off like a true fugitive. And Chloe, after the scandal, the pregnancy turned out to be fake. Just as we suspected. No one wants to hire her. Her parents, ashamed, sold their house to pay off the wedding debts and took her with them. They say they're having a very hard time. The two people who'd reveled in my pain were paying a very high price for their greed. Life is fair sometimes. I hung up, my heart heavy, but that sadness was fleeting. I looked at my garden where lavender bloomed in a sea of violet. I took a deep breath. Their life, as tragic as it was no longer mine. A week later, I presented the final hotel project to the investor, a very demanding Swiss man. I'd prepared everything in detail. When I finished, the investor, who according to Benjamin never smiled, stood up and applauded. "Marvelous, Miss Hayes," he said with admiration. "This is exactly the soul I was looking for. You have done an excellent job." Benjamin beside me smiled proudly. The project was approved without a single change. Back at the studio, Benjamin told me, "Sarah, you've amazed me. The client is delighted. He's going to recommend us for a much larger resort in Sonoma Valley. It was a team effort, Sarah, but the vision was yours. To celebrate, the company has decided to give you a 30% raise effective this month, and you deserve a week of paid vacation. Go wherever you want and recharge, because the Sonoma Valley project is waiting for you." I was so happy. I wanted to jump in the middle of the street. A raise, a vacation, and most importantly, my work was recognized. I realized that by leaving David, I hadn't lost anything. I had found myself and so much more. I decided to use my vacation to travel down the California coast. I rented a small car and drove on back roads, staying in rustic inns, eating goat cheese and toast with olive oil. I met new people. We talked about wine, art, and the beauty of life. I realized my value wasn't in being someone's wife or in the money I had, but in my independence, in my ability to create my own happiness. When I returned to Maplewood, my garden was even more beautiful. I signed up for advanced French classes and a pottery workshop. I wanted to keep learning. One afternoon, while reading in the garden, Maria called. We talked often, but only about my life, her work, her kids. We never mentioned David or Chloe again. They had disappeared from my life like a nightmare that fades at dawn. I watched the sun dance on the leaves. I understood that those 8 years of marriage, though painful, had taught me a lesson. And the divorce wasn't an end. It was a beginning, the door to a new path, a path filled with sunshine. I smiled. I knew my future on that path would only get better. What new path would you choose to redefine your happiness?